What's going on, everyone? It's Michael McDonald here, your host of the Rocket REI Live podcast. So excited for today's episode. We have a special Christmas Eve guest today. I'm joined today by my buddy Barry. Barri Griffiths is the host of the YouTube channel Wrestling with Real Estate, where he interviews people from all aspects of the industry. His goal is to help educate as many people to the amazing benefits of real estate. For the past decade, he has been working in the entertainment industry. He's previously starred in the UK version of US Gladiators as Gladiator Goliath, then went on to wrestle on TV for the WWE as Mason Ryan, where he wrestled the likes of John Cena and performed on pay-per-views and regularly appeared on Monday Night Raw. He is currently performing for Cirque Du Soleil at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And just a reminder for everyone who's tuning in today, this is a live show, and so feel free to drop your questions. And this is going to be awesome. So if you're in here right now, you gotta like, you gotta share, tag a friend who needs to hear this, because this is going to be legit. I'm excited. So Barry, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks, man. Hey, you're more of a man than I am. When I started doing video. When I was doing video, I stopped reading people's introductions because I was terrible at it. So you're more of a man than I am. I was like messing it up. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna let the guests introduce themselves because I keep making a mess of this. So I appreciate you doing that. That was pretty cool.
Hey, it's a work in progress, right? But at any rate, I'm still going to ask you. I've introduced you. The credentials, man, the amount of things that you've done is incredible. But for those who don't know you, how did you get started in real estate? And just tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, man. Like you said, this will be fun. It's live, so live TV is always fun, right? It's always a little bit more, a bit of an excitement about it. Barri Griffiths grew up in Wales in the UK, in the tiniest little town that you can ever imagine. And I don't think a lot of people can imagine how tiny my town was, because it was like 200 people that live here. A tiny town here for people is like 10,000 people. I'm like, that's huge from where I'm from. So 200 people. There was a fish and chip shop. There was a post office. There was a tiny little grocery store / convenience store, and there was 3 pubs. So that gives you an idea about the town that I grew up in. Grew up there, always sort of, because it was so small. For some reason, I always wanted something else for my life, I think, outside of just living there for the next 80 years, or 70, 80 years, whatever. You know what I mean? I always wanted more outside. And I don't know why that was. It was just, I remember that being growing up. So I always grew up, but I ended up working for my dad in a construction business, like as a carpenter, and just really hated it. It was just not for me. I did that because I didn't know what else to do, and there wasn't that many other opportunities there. So I was doing that, but I was the world's worst carpenter because I hated it. And if you hate something, you have no interest in it. And it just wasn't a natural skill for me. So I don't do any of my rehab work now. Like I outsource everything because I'm just no good and I don't enjoy it really. So it was looking to do more, was going to the gym all the time, working out, build a physique for myself. And it was like, well, I'm training 7 days a week, eating healthy, doing all this stuff. Let me try and do something with this, right? I noticed I was getting attention. I was like, all right, and I knew I wanted something else, something different for my life. So I saw wrestling on TV one day. It just came up on the TV. It was I wasn't a big fan growing up or anything like that. I thought, I think I could do that. I'm kind of athletic and I'm kind of big like these guys. So I started pursuing wrestling, and I just luckily got introduced to a wrestling promoter in Wales. Started wrestling with him all over the UK and Europe, and then ended up signing with the WWE 3 or 4 years later. Moved to Tampa, Florida. Wrestled with them for about 4 or 5 years, and then that finished. And then started working with Cirque Du Soleil. So where real estate fits in this was when my contract wasn't renewed by WWE in early 2014. I just bought a house. I bought a house in January of 2014, and then April of 2014 they didn't renew my contract. So so me not knowing anything about anything at the time, I bought quite an expensive house because I thought I was going to be the world heavyweight champion, right? I say this all the time. My plan A was to be the world heavyweight champion. My plan B was to be the world heavyweight champion, and my plan C was to be the world heavyweight champion. So I bought this expensive house. It was $435,000, and I had that mortgage, weighing down on me once that kind of came to an end. That career kind of came to an end, right, to some extent. So I had to figure out what I was going to do with this house because I couldn't afford the mortgage long term. So I figured I didn't want to sell the house. I kept a hold of it, learned how to get a tenant in, learned what not to do and how to screen a tenant, all that kind of stuff. And that started me down the rabbit hole of real estate. I think that's kind of where it really kind of sparked that. And also having that happen, going down the real estate rabbit hole made me realize that I can create a plan B for myself, right? After that happened, I realized I needed a plan B, right? I needed a plan B as a backup plan. So that kind of started me down, rich dad, poor dad, bigger pockets, all that kind of stuff. And then it just opened the whole world of real estate investing to me. And I was blown away. I say it was like, in The Matrix when Neo is able, the first one, to decipher the code, and he's able to dodge bullets and kind of do everything. That's kind of how it was to me. This whole other world opened up to me. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I just fell in love and dived into it from there. And I was just kind of being obsessed ever since.
That's incredible, man. I absolutely love that. So I'm just curious, did that house that you had to afford a mortgage for, did that tenant cover that mortgage?
No, unfortunately it did. Well, so what happened was the mortgage was $2,550, which is a lot for a $435,000 because I put a ton down as well. But what it was in a really nice neighborhood, but there was really high CDD fees and HOA fees. So they were like $400 or $500 a month, I think. So that's where I got really killed on that one. So what happened was that I was looking for a tenant, and it was so you're looking for a tenant. I was trying to get someone in for $2,600, right, just to get a little bit above that. So looking, couldn't find anyone, didn't know anything at the time, how to market, how to find tenants or anything. And I was panicking because I was, all the while I'm not getting someone in there, I'm eating that. So I was like, oh my God, what can I do? And then someone came along and showed interest. And it was one of the few people that actually showed interest. He's like, I can't do that, but I'll do $2,300 and I'll put blinds all in these things because his mother-in-law did blinds or something. And it was that's why I love this house. I bought this house not as an investment at all, zero investment skills whatsoever. Love the layout, love the flooring, love the color of the walls, loved all the stuff that doesn't bring value to a home, right? You know what I mean?
A little bit of emotional attachment there.
Yeah, it was I didn't do any calculations in terms of how much you would rent for, or the 1% rule. It was the 0.1% rule probably, or something crazy like that. Didn't make zero sense from an investment standpoint. But there's tons of windows all around it. Literally, it was all windows. It was a beautiful home. So the guy said, we bought it with no blinds. He said, I'll pay $2,300 a month and I'll put blinds all around. So that was about 8 to 10 grand's worth of. So I didn't necessarily cover the mortgage. I was eating $400 a month, but he put these blinds in, so it kind of became a wash. Now I would rather have put no blinds in and had that mortgage covered, but it kind of worked out. So yeah, that was kind of tough. But at the time, honestly, I couldn't bring myself to sell the house because the dream of, I thought I was going to be the world heavyweight champion, and that wasn't a place coming from a place of arrogance or being overconfident. It was just I was working hard. I had a trajectory that was suggesting that at one point, and it was just a quiet confidence. It wasn't I was like, hey, I want to be the world heavyweight champion, and it wasn't like that. I didn't really tell many people. It was just inside of me. Right. But then when that came crashing down, I realized that that wasn't the case. So I don't know where I was going with that, to be honest.
No, that's awesome. Do you still own that house?
No, I sold it. That's what it was. Sorry. Going back. So I thought I was going to be the world heavyweight champion, and that came crashing down. And I loved this house, so I couldn't bring myself to sell that house. I would have lost some money on it, which would have been okay at the time because I could have took all that equity out and it would have given me a buffer and, a few years to live and not have to worry about whatever was going to happen next, right? But I couldn't bring myself to sell the house because I loved it. So to lose that house as well as my job would have been too much at that time, everything come crashing down. So I had to make sure I kept that house. So that's why that was important to me. So what happened was I always thought I was going to move back to the house because I loved it, right? That's why I didn't want to sell it. I thought at some point I'm going to move back to it. But then as your investing career grows and you realize, and I had, I don't know, whatever, $150,000 worth of equity sitting in this house, when I'm losing money every month, I was like, this is a terrible investment, right? Once you kind of learn that the return on ROE rate, the return on equity didn't make any sense. So I sold it about two years ago. And took that money and reinvested it somewhere else. So, and the way I figured it as well, like as much as I love that house and I would have loved to move back to it, there'll be other houses, and and if I grow my investment, maybe I can buy an even nicer house, right? So that's kind of my mindset on that one. Plus, I wanted to invest in multifamily. Yeah, that's what I wanted to invest in. So I didn't want to. Initially, my goal was to buy 40 single. Tell me if I'm going too long here. Wanted to buy 40 single because once I realized you can get that passive income, and there's nothing passive income about rental real estate too much, right? Unless you're doing something like syndication or a REIT, right? And even that is not that passive. But I realized I wanted that income coming in from something else, and they say figure out what your goal is, what is your number that you want to get to, and then reverse engineer it from there. So I figured 40 single family homes is where I wanted to be, and I was living in Vegas at the time.
What's the cash flow on 40 single family homes at that time? What did you envision?
I think I was looking at 200 or 250 a door, something along those lines. So I don't know what that is in terms of maths.
Yeah, it's a significant amount. So
right, it's not crazy, but it's like it works out to what, 100 grand a year or something like that. I think 200. Yeah, 200 is $8 grand a month, right? So that works out to 96 grand a year. So that's kind of what my goal was. So I backtracked it, but I soon realized, right? And I was living in Vegas, and I didn't, even though the world of real estate had opened up to me, I still didn't understand, like the Burr method, creative financing, house hacking, all this stuff. I didn't really realize it so much. So I was thinking 10 years, 40 single family homes, 4 homes a year. One home bought as a primary occupier, so I can get 5% down, but the rest I need 20% down. And I'm looking in Vegas, and even back then, the median home price in Vegas was $250. So I was trying to figure out every way I could to okay, I need this much money, I make this much, so I need to save this much. I need my wife to make some more money in her work. I need to maybe get some other income from somewhere else. And then I just met with someone one day, and they were like, hey, your goal of getting to 40 single family homes, you can just buy one apartment complex, right? And I was like, say that again? Can you repeat that for me? Speak slowly. And he played out how apartments work, and obviously apartments can be more expensive, and it's it's more expensive than one home, and it's not quite that simple. But the concept really resonated with me. I was like, why would I wait 10 years to build this, right? Because I'm kind of impatient as well, right? I think it can be a good and a bad thing in some extent. But if I can get there in 2 years rather than 10 years, hey, sign me up, right? So and then I obviously realized all the benefits for me that I like about multifamily and apartment investing, and I was just from that point on, I was all in, and I had 2 single families here in Las Vegas at the time, sold both of them, and
the Las Vegas apartments aren't not cash flowing well for you, huh?
The properties I bought. So I bought one home here it was a townhome that I bought for 173, put about 10 grand in there, and then rented it for 1,300. So it wasn't the 1% rule, but it was still cash flowing $300-400 at the time. But it was in a decent area, and it went up in value. And I was like, all right, let me take this equity off the table. And then I bought also a primary residence to live in, and that also went up in a good amount in equity. And I sold that and took that off the table as well to reinvest. And I didn't end up buying here in Vegas apartments because just prices are just, when I was looking 2 years ago, they were kind of nuts, and now it's even crazier. It makes zero sense.
Yeah, I've looked at apartments out here. It doesn't even compare to Midwest. So is it a place you invest? Is that in the Midwest, or where is that?
Yeah. I own 6 units in Cincinnati currently. Truthfully, I thought I would be with a lot higher unit count than that right now. There's been a few mistakes I made along the way. I can talk about that if you want. But I bought 6 units at the start of the year, and it was just, again, my initial I wanted to be 15 to 20 units, my first purchase. But this 6 unit came along, and it was in a great area. It had a lot of upside, huge upside in terms of what was available. So I bought it for 300, and at the time we thought it could be worth 500.
Oh wow!
Quite easily, right? So, and it needed, I thought, maybe 70 or 80 in rehab. Well, we've since come to realize, since being able to push rents so much, that it'll be worth 600 plus, and I'll be all in. I'll be all in for about 400. so it'll be worth 600 plus. So that was more of a flip. I bought that in January of this year. Busy renovating the 5th out of 6 units. COVID has really, I thought I would be in and out in 6 months, but COVID slowed down that plan. But I'm in 5th or 6th unit, and just to give you an idea how much I was able to push rents, right? One of the units was renting for $525 when I bought it. I'm getting that same unit now for $1,400. I'm getting $1,400 for that same unit.
Wow.
So like nearly $900 rent bump. Yeah, it's nuts.
How many bedrooms is that?
It turned it from a 2 to a 3 bedroom, so that helped obviously increase.
I was gonna say that definitely helps.
But it wasn't nothing. There was a bedroom there. Essentially, it was a second living room. Essentially, so all I had to do was put a closet in there, and that was it. So it had everything you needed to be a bedroom. So it wasn't. It was $200, $300 or something to put a closet in there, and it really added that value. So with multifamily, I'm sure for people who maybe don't, the value is derived when you're at 5+ units. The value is derived from the income stream, right? Essentially, what they call the NOI. It's the income minus the expenses that gives you the NOI, which is the net operating income, which it gives the value of the property. So if you're able to increase the rents, you're able to increase the value of the property as long as your expenses stay roughly the same.
Beautiful. Dude, it sounds like you kind of accidentally got into real estate here from where this is going. Like you bought a house thinking that your plan A, B, and C were going to be heavyweight champion. You were going to make a lot of money. You were going to be golden. And it didn't necessarily go that way. But I'm bringing this point up is because I think a lot of people end up in situations like maybe a lot of people are going through this year with COVID is they thought they had income and all of a sudden they lost their job. So now they have to find a new way to make money. And I might be biased, but I think the best way to be wealthy is to, build the real estate portfolio. But awesome, man. So
no, for sure. Real estate is just unbelievable, man. It's like there's a saying, it's like real estate is the final frontier where the average American can create real wealth, right? Because like in the stock market, you can buy stock for like really cheap and invest 50 grand and it can go up like crazy, but that's not the norm, right? It's just pure speculation. And you can make money in the stock market. I'm not like saying that at all, but in real estate, you can really start out with nothing, right? And this is what I love about it. Literally, there's people that start out with actually a few $100 grand in debt. They started out like that, right? So for people who think that they have an excuse why not to start, right? And this is not me being mean or anything, it's just the truth. If think about this, right? People started out with $200,000-$300,000 of student debt, all kind of credit card loans, right? All this kind of bad debt, right? And they're now millionaires, right? Think about that, right? Think they started not with nothing, less than nothing. They started with this weight on their back, and they're now millionaires. And it's like they weren't rocket scientists, they weren't geniuses, right? They worked hard, they educated themselves, and they applied themselves to what they believed that was going to work. Just think about that. So anyone can do this. That's what the amazing thing is for me, right? I think in the stock market, you need money to make money, and you can make money like that. And I'm not bashing the stock market. Plenty of people have made plenty of money like that, right? But you can go to work. Real estate is less passive if you're trying to create something, right? You can invest. If you have money, you can invest and it can work great. But the cool thing is you can take it on as a job, right? And I think that's how I see it. If you want to create wealth from nothing, you have to take it as a job, right? You have to consider, okay, I'm going to have to work at this, right? It's not, hey, I'm going to take 10,000, I'm going to stick in this property, and then in 3 or 4 years, I'm going to be a million. No, you need to take that 10,000, you need to go to work, create value in a property, turn that property into more equity, and repeat that process, right? But if you're willing to do that, you can literally be a millionaire. Like you have a lottery ticket that's guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed.
Choose your hard.
Right?
Choose your hard, right? You want to work every single day?
You have that. You're going to go to work anyway, right? It's like
exactly.
none of us are lucky enough that we can just sit on the couch all day or do whatever we want, right? And some people are maybe, but for the most part, we have to go to work, right? So why not go to work for yourself, right? And even if you have to go to work and work on top of that, is that not worth it to be? And the millionaire thing, right? People might go, I don't care about $1 million. Like, I don't mean either, right? But I care about the life I can create for myself, right? I like the idea of creating that comfort for myself that if I worked for Cirque Du Soleil this year. I haven't worked since March 9th, right? But I've been okay, thankfully, through my real estate investment, right? And I think that was a good point you made as well, right? Maybe I think a lot of people realizing that this year that their job that they thought was secure, right? Because that's the thing, right? Go to school, work hard, go to college, get a great degree, find a good job, right? And then you'll be fine, right? You're set. Everything, that's the dream right there, right? But what happens when this pandemic comes in, right? That nobody had any idea was coming on. Well, what do you do now? Your job is right. Your job might be gone, and I'm sorry if it is. Really, I feel for so many people, right? But you have something else backed up, right? And the great thing about real estate is you really can do it, right? You really can do it. It's just like I'm doing it. You know what I mean? It's just, sorry, man. It's amazing to me. I think I'm so passionate about real estate.
I can see it, and I absolutely love it, man. But I just have to say, so let's talk about this. For somebody who is at a job, or maybe they were let go from a job, like they're afraid right now. They want something more for their life and to get into real estate. How do you get started with no money in your bank account? And for me, I got started when I was $50,000 in student loan debt and other debt. So I'm going to just kind of let you take this here for kind of your experiences. How do you buy an apartment building without having like a trust fund or something like that?
Well, first and foremost, like this is what I hear all the time, and I'm not a super expert like this I'm still kind of early on in my journey, right? But I'm I know where I'm going, hopefully, and I can kind of see the future, hopefully, with that. But I have my own podcast, so I think I've learned a lot from that, from speaking to a lot of people, and it's quite inspiring to people. The biggest thing I hear all the time from people that are not in the real estate space is, I wish I could invest in real estate, but I don't have money. I don't know if you hear that. I hear that all the time. Oh, like, hey, yeah, and if I save up in 2 or 3 years' time, I think I'll be ready to invest in real estate. Well, I'm like, if that's your mindset, I don't think you ever will, right? To be honest with you, right? So capital is not a reason to not. Right? Money is not a reason not to invest in real estate. Because the cool thing about real estate, once you really dive into it, you can be as creative as you want, and there's a million different ways that you can invest, right? But let's take the apartment complex, for example, right? What if, and you've got to bring something. So I think if you don't have money, the key is that you have to bring something. What are you bringing, right? Everyone, to be part of a deal, everyone brings something. You can't just be like there and hands up, be like, I don't bring anything. I don't have anything to offer. I'm just here. I think I should make money in my apartment. So, can you guys give me money? Can you guys give me part of this deal? No, it's not going to work like that. And I don't think anyone would really think that would be the case. So what do you bring? So if you don't bring the money, well, what if you find a deal? What if you understand how to underwrite deals and talk to brokers and understand construction so that, you buy a property that's undervalued, fix it up. So if you find initially going back to finding the deal, if you find a great deal and then it makes sense and you're passionate about it and you've educated yourself and you understand what you're talking about, it's not that hard to find money, right? It really isn't, right? And the next thing I would say from that, right? Start telling everyone. Tell everyone. You're in line at the grocery store, just start talking to people. Say, hey, what's up, man? And also the key to that a lot of times is like, if you ask someone, hey, what do you do? I work for the bank, blah, blah, blah. What is going to be their next question? What do you do? Exactly. What do you? I invest in apartments. Like I buy undervalued apartments and fix them up, create a lot of value, and I also bring in partners that kind of come along with me for the journey, and we all share in that profits. It's really amazing. It's really cool. And then they go, really? You invest in apartments? Like, tell me a little bit more. Oh, well, I got to go now, man, but here's my phone number. Let's talk some other time, right? Let's have another conversation about this, right? Or you're at a family dinner or whatever, right? There's always money around, whether it's in your immediate circle or it could be at the gym, right? You're just working at the gym. Hey, man, can I use a machine? Yeah, hey, I've seen you here a few times. What do you do? I work for blah, blah, blah. Oh, what do you, the question comes back, what do you do? Just tell everyone and you'll find that money, because if you're looking for it, right?
There's so much money. There's so much money on the sidelines that why wouldn't they want to work with somebody who has the knowledge and experience to put that money to work?
People want, and you don't even need to have that experience level, right? It could be your hunger, right, your desire that shines through, right? And you can use other people's experience as well. That's the great thing about investment partners. You can bring property managers, you can bring in partners, right? You can do all that stuff to help gain experience, right? But the cool thing is that there's capital everywhere, like you said, really. But I think it comes back to, like, I'm not a believer in the law of attraction so much, but I was talking to someone, and it just makes sense to me. The more open you are to stuff, right? The more, like, if you're not looking for money, and if you're not like thinking, hey, I could provide someone with it, and I think you've got to have that mindset. I can provide someone with a great opportunity to make money on their money. Like, I really, like, it's great that I'm giving people a great opportunity. I'm not asking anyone for money. Don't give me your money if you don't want to. Like, I'm giving you the chance to do real estate and be involved in this thing. So have that mindset. But if I'm not thinking that when I'm walking around, like, I'm looking to talk to people, and, like, if someone says, hey, if you hear someone say, hey, I invested in a real estate deal one time, it didn't go so well, and then you just go on and say, hey, I heard you talk about real estate. I love real estate. Can you tell me more? Like, if you're not open to that, right, it's never going to come your way, right? If I'm just walking down, head down, and, like, listen to my phone or whatever, and just listen to music, and I'm not looking to attract that, right? And I think the law of attraction is that just being open to stuff, right? It's like, you have to be open to stuff. Like, if you're not open to real estate deals, how are you going to find deals, right? If you're walking around and you see someone setting up a home or something like that, and it looks a little rough, and you don't pull over and you go, hey, is this your home? Are you looking to sell? What's going on here? Right? If you don't do that, right, you might never buy that home, but you're open to it, right? It's that law of attraction. So you're attracted by being open. You're like, other people who don't have that, they're going to walk by someone who talks about real estate. They're going to drive by that property, right? Because they're not open to it. And you've got to open yourself up to it. It's just nuts, right? It's just crazy to me.
It's insane. I'm so passionate about this stuff, but my wife just gets drove nuts, I think, because we're driving through a neighborhood. I see somebody, looks like maybe an abandoned house. I'll stop. I'll talk to him. At the airport, I'm talking to people. I mean, you just never know who you're going to talk to. And I'm just always very curious. And it's good to be curious because that opens up opportunities. But, dude, it's great. You hit it on the head for sure.
Yeah, what it is if you never have those conversations and you're never curious and you never start talking to people, right, you're never going to get anywhere. And someone told me, like, this was mind-blowing to me. One person, one connection, never mind one deal, one person can change your life. And you never know who that person is. Literally, one person can change your life. That person could be a multimillionaire, right? Multimillionaires, you don't even know that multimillionaires they don't walk around with big chains and, like, whatever, right? You know what I mean? And Gucci sneakers a lot of times, right?
Those are the guys that have the old money, that have the most money. They drive an old beat down truck. It's
you never know, and you never one of those. All you meet someone like that, and he has a portfolio of 2,000 units, and he wants to own and finance them all to you. Or he has $5 million and he doesn't know what to do with it, right? Or he's could be turned into your mentor that advises you on how to do it and helps you be successful. Literally, mind-blowing to me. I never realized that. And someone told me that recently. Literally, one person can change your life. And if you're not open to talking to these people, how are you ever going to meet that person, right? It could be right in front of you, but you're, like, looking at your phone, or you're just not open to it, right? And it's just crazy to me.
That's so true. So let's talk about a deal. Like, let's talk about, like, a real life deal. I know we've talked a lot about your apartment in Cincinnati already, but if you want to continue on that, let's do it. But I want to hear, like, how did you find it? How did you put the deal together? And how'd you finance it? And what was the revenue on it? What's the play?
Yeah. So I'll talk about that 6 unit. So I'll talk maybe for people that. So for one, I want to go back to the Vegas thing, right? It's tough in Vegas, but there's people doing deals here in Vegas. So I don't know if maybe I was not applying myself too much, or I don't know. I went for the lower hanging fruit, I guess, with going to
it's
Midwest.
A different world. I invest in Nebraska, but I also have looked for deals in Vegas. It's just a different ball game out here. So
and there's people being successful, right? So it's not that, there's people in Los Angeles being successful. There's people in San Diego being successful, right? And those are overheated markets, you would think, right? And super expensive. But there's people being successful. So I don't want anyone to listen to this and think, oh, my market's overheated, I can't be successful. It was just a choice I made. For one, the ultimate choice came down to the market cycles here in Vegas, right? I think they go up and down. They're a lot more, it's a lot more cyclical here, whereas the Midwest is a lot more consistent. So that's what I wanted there. So that's why, and I was looking around and trying to find somewhere in the Midwest, and I have a coach, so we can talk about that if you want. But I had a real estate coach to help me, because I realized apartments is residential real estate, but there's a lot more complexities. And as I was really looking at deals and kind of getting close to making offers, I was like, okay, whoa, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. I don't want to get into one of these properties and mess up. So anyway, but he actually lives in Cincinnati, and he was like, hey, I invest in Dallas, but from what you're telling me, it seems like Cincinnati would be a good market. So looked it up, did some research. There was some job growth, population growth there, which is what you want in apartments, because those, job growth is what brings the people, and the people is what live in your apartments, right? If you have the best building in the world, unless you have people in there, the tenants, it doesn't matter. So it's a people business that you're in to some extent, right? So I flew out to Cincinnati, drove around, got to know the market, met with brokers, was doing all these things to build the team out there. And that's a completely different subject about how to invest out of state. We can touch on that if you want. But really like the city and really like the opportunity. And there was tons of the smaller multifamily that I was kind of looking for there. So I was like, all right, cool. Built a good relationship with the broker, took him out to lunch, all that stuff, and kept in contact with him, right? And looked at deals, build the rapport, kept building the rapport, blah, 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 blah. And then in November of 19, he calls me up one day and says, hey, there's this deal that you might be interested in. I know it's much smaller than what you're looking for, but my sister-in-law is getting ready to list it on the residential market, because it was 6 units, so it's smaller. So for people who don't know, four units and under is considered residential, right? It's you finance it with the traditional financing, and 5+ units is considered commercial. So even though it was 6 units, I think they thought, it's small enough that it's going to be on the residential side. So they were getting ready to list it. He's like, hey, if you want, I think it's a really good deal. I have some pictures. I'll send you some pictures. Someone's getting ready to list a property just down the street in not quite as nice an area for $500K, right? I think this needs work, but no more than $100K. So all right, took a quick look. And I was like, all right, this makes sense. Let's put an offer in, right? And usually you put what is called a letter of intent, an LOI, in on multifamily properties, because the contract in commercial is a lot more complicated. So it's better to have a non-binding letter of intent initially, just to get an idea if you guys are on the same page. And then once that is, you go into the full PSA, the purchase and sales agreement. But I went straight to PSA because I was like, all right, let's not mess around. This is a good deal. It makes sense. Let's go straight. I'm trying to put it under contract. So literally that day, I think we sent a contract out, and they signed it for full asking price, because it just made sense. And so the opportunity was, the previous landlord was a slumlord. The units were terrible. I don't know how he could let some of the tenants live there. One of the units had just so much water damage, and just there wasn't mold, but it was just
paying rent.
They were paying rent, but they were paying 5. So to some extent, these tenants wouldn't have been living in this property if it wasn't for that, to some extent. So they were happy paying less and living in that area, because it's a good area. It's a B+ area. But this was a C- property, when I took it over. So they were kind of happy, I think, to some extent, even though the conditions weren't great. They weren't terrible. They weren't cockroaches everywhere and this kind of stuff, but it was far from ideal, right? And some of the walls were a mess. There was unfinished drywall, all this kind of stuff, right, going on there. So the opportunity was to fix all that, right? Improve all the units, do a real complete renovation job of each unit, rehab of each unit, and then.
Did you find somebody out there who was recommended?
Yeah, to do the work. So dealing with contractors, right, as you know, is a challenge in itself, right, especially out of state. So what I'd always heard and what I wanted to do was get referrals. I didn't want to just go on Craigslist or Google a contractor and just find them there. I wanted to get a referral. So I went through the broker that brought me the deal. And he referred me to someone that he just sort of was impressed with. And I went with them on my first unit, but for some reason that person turned out to be terrible. And it wasn't the broker's fault. But thinking back, the broker may have not been the best person to get a referral from, because he's never had this guy do work for him. He doesn't do renovation work himself. So he didn't do a good job. I had to get someone to go back in and redo it. But it wasn't a complete disaster, but it was far from ideal. So the second contractor I found was through my property manager. And that was a great resource, because this contractor did a lot of work for this property manager. So he was always going to do good work, because the property manager gave him, I don't know, 50 jobs a year in terms of, because the property manager dealt with people that was flipping and that was doing all that stuff. So he was always going to do a good job, otherwise he was going to be out of a lot of work. So that ended up working out. So I ended up getting a contract, and that contractor then went back to redo that first unit, and then has done every unit since. He's not the cheapest, but he does good work, and he's pretty reliable and responsive and all that stuff. So for me, I'd rather pay a little bit more.
500?
Say that again.
You bought it for 500,000.
I bought it for 300,000.
300,000. How much?
And it was going to be and it was going to be worth 500 because we thought just because someone was getting ready to sell that, and we thought they would sell. So yeah, I bought it for 300. You know, I've got 2 more units to renovate. I'm going to be all in for about 100, 110. So you know, say 410, and then hopefully it's going to be worth 625, 650.
And then just pull out your cash, refinance.
No, I'm going to sell, I think, because this property is like a 1900 property, 1910, I think. Yeah, so it's like it's going to continuously. It's going to need a lot more repairs and maintenance. It's also in a historic area, which I didn't realize initially. So, which is good because everyone keeps everything looking great, but once you have to fix something, it becomes a massive pain in the ass. So I had to fix it. There's what they call box gutters. I don't know if everyone knows everyone knows what normal guttering is, right? But box gutters are made out of wood, so it literally look like a box in the side of the roof that drains down the water. So I had to replace that because they were all rotten. They'd rotten over the years. They hadn't been replaced in 30, 40 years. So I had to replace them. So rather than put in guttering, which would have been pretty cheap on both sides, right? It would have been maybe $1,000 for both sides. I had to replace them with a complete renovation of both sides, put brand new ones in. That was $6,000 each side. So that was like a learning curve. Yeah,
it wasn't in your budget.
It wasn't in my budget, no. But I had plenty of money, you know, set aside for this, along with some fudge factor renovation money as well. So I was okay. And it ultimately is, you know, if I have to spend an extra $12,000, but I'm making over an extra $100,000 on the deal, it's a small price to pay. Like, but it was just, you know, that was one thing that any property I look at now in Cincinnati, I'm like, oh, is this in the historic district? Because I don't want to deal with that, right? Because you have to, if I was to replace any windows, you have to replace like the original. Like you can't paint the front. You can't. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can't do because of that. But
what's the projected revenue then, if you don't mind me asking?
It'll be. Yeah, so my collected rents will be about $7,000 a month on this once all the tenants are in. Yeah, so because I really did think about doing a cash out refinance, right, and just keeping hold of it. But 6 units, and you know, with me looking to scale more and more, right? Like, how much focus do I want to put on 6 units, right? And I'll have a property manager and everything, but you still have to asset manage that one, right? And to asset manage 6 units as opposed to 30 units is pretty much the same, right? There's not that much difference in work. So I'd rather own 30 units than 6 units. Plus, like I said, it being old as well, there's going to be a lot more repairs and maintenance and a lot more issues along the way. And I'd rather just take that money and do a 1031 exchange. And I actually think I'm going to do a reverse 1031 exchange where you find the property that you're going to buy first and then do it like that, because that gives you more control.
What's next? 130? How many units are we looking at?
Oh no, depends on what area. Between 30 and 40, I would say.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So just to help our listeners understand, you're going to roll this money into that next purchase, but how are you going to finance that next purchase? Is that going to be bringing in partners? Is that going to be your cash or finance?
Yeah. There's a couple of different things I'm going to do. So the next one I'm going to buy with the money from that deal is going to be using just my money. I'm doing what they call a 1031 exchange. For people who don't know, it's also called a like-kind exchange. It's where you're able to defer the taxes. So as long as you buy another investment property and it's of equal or greater amount than the one you bought or sold, sorry, I think it's sold, right? Yeah, sold. So if I sell it for 600, I've got to buy the next property at 600,000 or above. But I can defer paying any of the capital gains and roll it into the next deal. So I'll be walking away with 300,000, maybe a little bit more from this one, so I can leverage that and buy something 1.2, 1.5 million.
Tax free.
Yeah, tax deferred, right?
So deferred, but if you keep that property forever,
if I keep doing that forever, if I keep that property forever, or I do it onto the next one, it's like, yeah, you can keep rolling that until you die, right? And then the current tax codes. I think I'm not a tax professional or anything like that, but I think if you die, your kids don't pay taxes, or whoever you leave that property, they don't have to pay taxes on it. So yeah, essentially you can avoid paying tax. If you do it right, you can avoid paying taxes. So it's amazing. So that's
Right.
one way I'll do. So I'll take that money from that and do that. But also I'm looking at 20 to 50 units with some money I have, and doing a joint venture with some other people as well in Cincinnati. So I've got some people that are interested in doing some deals. So I'm looking at that as well. So got some few options, and yeah. And the cool thing about me for multifamily is, like you see, right, I bought 6 units, increase the rents, improve the property, give the tenants a better place to live, improve the neighborhood, which is cool, right? All that cool stuff. And then I benefited from it. And then now I'm going from 6 units to, say, 30 units. And then if I can do that again, I can take 30 units and maybe double it, take that, make it 50 or 60 units. Now I have 56 in you. And that one deal almost, creates that lifestyle and that cash flow and that freedom from you by itself, right? If you're able to do it right. And don't get me wrong, I was a little lucky on that first deal. Like, just happened so to be that guy's sister-in-law was listing it. He knew I was looking, reached out to me, and I got it under contract, right? It was, I was out there looking, I was keeping in touch, so I was created the opportunity, right? Luck is where opportunity meets hard work, right? And I was out there, I was attracting it, right? The law of attraction, or that, being open to these opportunities, and it came my way. But, it just shows you what's possible just in real estate, I think.
Oh yeah, man! The sky is the limit with this stuff, and it's amazing because it's like you're flipping bigger projects versus like most people are flipping single family houses. So you're going big right away. I love that. It's more profitable and probably, I don't know. What do you think? Is about the same amount of work, maybe a little bit less than doing like 50.
Yeah, it's a little more. And the bigger you get, the more sophistication there is, and the more complicated it gets. But you don't need to do that, right? And I did some single family homes to start off with, right? And you can do whatever your comfort level is, right? And to some people, it might be that one deal that leads to other deals, right? It could be a single family home that they buy that they flip and they make 30,000 on, and then they use that 30,000 to buy 2 more homes, and they make 30,000 on both those homes. And now you're really rolling on, you buy. You take 30,000 and you buy a property, and you do the BRRRR method, right? And you just keep doing that, and you keep building cash flow, and then all of a sudden you have 20 properties and you're making 200 a unit, and all of a sudden you're really off to the races, right? It doesn't need to be multifamily. I love multifamily, and it works for me, and I think it's awesome. But it doesn't need to be that, right? It can be whatever. I think whatever you feel comfortable, whatever makes sense to you, right? Everyone's brain works differently, I think.
Absolutely. No, I love it. So anyone who's listening right now, if you guys have questions for for Barry, we're going to do just a little bit of a Q&A at the end. If anyone has questions, just feel free to drop them below. This guy is a former WWE wrestler. I mean, wealth of knowledge with multifamily real estate. Definitely ask your questions if you have them. But anyway, Barry, I know it's Christmas Eve, and I don't want to keep you for too long.
No, but well, I got time. My wife is not home yet, so it's all good.
Okay, yeah, right on.
Yeah, man, this is fun. I literally looked at the clock. Sorry, I literally looked at the clock. There, I was like, it's 10:47 already. Man,
I know. I could talk hours, but
sorry, I go off on tangents as well. I don't even remember what I'm talking about half the time. So
I could talk real estate all day long. But hey, tell me about Cirque du Soleil. So obviously that's on hold right now. Is that going to be coming back around in the foreseeable future out here, or do you have any insight on that?
No real insight. Could be 3 months, could be 6 months. It will come back for sure. It just depends on the vaccine. Depends on the big thing here is international travel for us. Like, we don't make money off people driving in from California for the weekend, or someone flying in from Atlanta. They got a cheap flight from Atlanta, right? Because those people, they can come back next month or in 6 months' time, right? But if you're flying from Asia, right, or you're flying from the UK, or you're flying from Australia, right, you're putting everything on the credit, right? You're spending every penny you have and then some, right? Because you might never be back, and it's Vegas and it's the party city. So that's my opinion. I don't know for sure, but that's just the sense I get. So until that, big international travel comes back, I think we'll be struggling a little bit. But it's all good for me. Luckily, I've been lucky that I have real estate, right? I have some real estate investments that's been keeping me afloat. That, along with the unemployment, right? It's kind of, I mean, not stressed one bit. And that was a big difference for people who might be listening to this, right? The first time around when my career came crashing down with WWE and they didn't renew my contract, I just got hit out of the blue. I didn't expect it, didn't have any plan B. This time around when we closed March 9th, not only did I have some real estate investments, which was going to help me, but I also had the knowledge. And I think, you know, it's good to have cash flow and it's good to have that passive income coming in or whatever. But that knowledge that I have as well, that I've educated myself, and I'm on the continuous journey to educate myself and learn and get better and improve, right? Is that I can create, right? If I lost everything, I would hate that. It would be horrible. And I'm not wishing that for 1 second. But what I've learned through real estate now, I feel like I could recreate, right? And I think that's a powerful thing. Like, so the cash flow, like creating that passive income through cash flow and replacing your income with rental real estate or whatever it is, right? It's cool. It's awesome. It's unbelievable, actually. And I'm not there yet, but I will be. But the knowledge that I have now and the understanding of real estate and the continuing learning process that I'm on gives me that confidence that no matter what life throws at me now, I'm okay. Because I can, you know, I lose everything tomorrow. In 5 years' time, I think I'll be okay again because I can recreate that. I can go, you know, I know not only the technical stuff, but the habits that you need and the kind of skill set.
So you put a lot of time and energy into real estate, but you talked about habits. So like, what are some of the things that you do to like help you, you know, just, you know, have the most success? Any habits that you'd like to tell anyone about?
Good question. I'm sure there is. The habits are important, right? That for me is a challenge because I follow habits, despite people maybe thinking that I'm, you know, working out and all this stuff, right? It's a continuous challenge. So habits for me, for one is well, the mindset stuff is big for me. For one, right? Because sometimes I can get negative. I think like all of us, right? You're like, oh, why does this happen? Or blah blah blah, right? But it's like just being thankful for everything you have and realizing like the opportunity that you have, right, every day, right? That, you know, you have control. That's I think some of these things just really help me, that you have control of your own life, right? You can create whatever life you want for yourself, and you have that control every day that you wake up. In terms of actual habits,
you work out, right?
For one, yeah, every now and again, yeah. But for me, one thing I always do is start with the easiest thing, right? And I think I was speaking to someone about this, is they do the opposite. They're a morning person, so they start with the hardest thing, and then once they've done the hardest thing, everything gets easier. Well, for me, I'm not a morning person. I get up at 6:30 because of my son. I have no choice. I've got a 15-month-old son. He wakes me up. He's my alarm clock. So I get up early, but I always like to start with the easiest thing, because then that starts that ball. Because if I try and start, I'll be like, I'll do it later. I don't feel like doing that. So I start with the easiest for me. And you've got to understand you as a person, I think, right? I start with the easiest thing, and then I do the next easiest thing, and then the third easiest thing, and then that starts that ball rolling for me. Because if I try to start with the hardest thing, I'll just kind of put it off or maybe not do it or whatever, right? So just that outside of that, I have some, but I can't think off the top of my head.
Oh, no, that's great. That's perfect. So how about like any books? Like, do you attribute any of your knowledge to some books that you've read or podcasts that you listen to, or you're not a reader?
Yeah, podcasts. Love podcasts. Like, okay. Audio books. Yeah, I fall in and out of love with. Sometimes I'll be like all in, and then sometimes I won't do things for a few months. But podcasts, yeah, so many podcasts. Like, you know, there's just so many.
Wrestling with Real Estate, yeah. Right?
Wrestling with Real Estate is my YouTube channel, and the podcast called the WWRE podcast, which stands for Wrestling with Real Estate. So I have my own if you guys want to check it out. But there's so many. Like, what do I listen to now? I listen to Rod Khleif for multifamily. He's pretty good. Real Estate Guys. Joe Fearless is one, best real estate show ever. Old Capital. Bigger Pockets is cool. I like Bigger Pockets. To me is like the information they share is cool, but it's like it's easy to understand, and it's like always inspiring to me. So I always enjoy Bigger Pockets just from a hey, you can do this kind of standpoint, right? And they share great information. I'm not saying that they
make it seem so easy. Like they simplify the heck out of it. That's what I like about Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it is, and so I always enjoy listening to that. But there's always good information there. I'm not saying that. It's just I enjoy the simplicity of it, I think, to some extent. And books, tons of books. One Thing, I like One Thing, How to Influence and Influence People. So many. I don't know.
I know. The list goes on.
Yeah.
My bookshelf has about 60, 70 books over here.
What's that?
I said my bookshelf has about 70 books over here that
Are you a reader? Are you a reader or audiobook?
I like the hard copy, to be honest.
Okay.
I retain it better versus listening, because usually I'm multitasking when I'm listening.
Yeah.
I like podcasts, though. I'll listen to podcasts versus the radio.
What's your favorite podcast?
What's my favorite podcast? Gosh, that's a tough one. I used to listen religiously to Wholesaling Inc. And it's more for beginners, but so now I'm more like Bigger Pockets, just anything inspirational, motivational, and it's not even necessarily always real estate. Gosh, I can't think of anything.
Do you fall? I fall back and forth. Sometimes I'm like wanting to learn about real estate, and then I don't know if I listen too much, and I'm like, okay, I want to just listen to some knowledge-based stuff, like, you know what I mean, just some I don't know, some self-improvement stuff, some that kind of stuff, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, that's enough of that. I want to go back to real estate. Like, I hop back and forth from both all the time.
Real Estate Disruptors is what I was thinking about. Have you listened to that one with Steve Shank?
No. There's so many out there. Good thing, right? I think I love that now these days. Like, people that started 10 years ago, right? And I didn't start 10 years ago. I wish I did, but there was nothing like this out there now, and I think that's the cool. Like, that's another reason why anyone can do it, right? All the information is out there. Like, if you want to find how to do whatever you want to do, wholesaling, flipping, multifamily, tax liens, whatever it is, right? All the information you ever need is out there. And I think a lot of times what people need help with more than anything, and it's talked about all the time, right, is mindset stuff, right? That word is thrown around, but I think that's more important than the actual technical stuff. Because once you decide and know that you want to do something, you'll find a way, right? That's more important than learn. Because so many people learn the stuff, but they never do anything with it because they don't have that mindset, and they're scared or whatever it is, right? They haven't worked on that. So to me, that's more important than the technical stuff for people. Because I'm sure there's people even listening to this, right? They want to get into real estate, and like, they know it makes sense, but they just don't know how to, in terms of actually taking action, or like where to go to do it and all that stuff, right?
I think analysis paralysis is a real thing with a lot of people, and I think I even experienced it. But what I like about how you started with real estate, and what I like about how I started with real estate, is our backs were kind of against a wall, it seems like, a little bit. And when you have something to lose, I feel like it's easier to push through the things that weren't going to be as easy. And
you have no choice, right? So you kind of forced into it, right? And I think that's what it is. And if your life is too comfortable, sometimes it's hard to put yourself in discomfort, right? And truthfully, the last few years, I kind of fought that a little bit, right? I make great money with Cirque Du Soleil. I'm happy in my life with my wife. I have my son. I have my dog. Like, everything is good, right? So, like, what do I need more? And obviously, what do I need more is to make sure I have that plan B, make sure I have something to fall back on, right? Because I love my job. Great people I work with. It's fun. It's all that good stuff. So sometimes comfort can be a problem, because it's hard to put yourself in discomfort unless, like you said, you've got your back against the wall, and you have to, right? If you've got no money coming in or whatever it is, you have to go and make stuff happen. Otherwise, well, you're going to be in a whole world of trouble. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just something that popped up there. The biggest mistake I've made, right, and I know you didn't ask me this, but it just came up there, is waiting. So in 2018, 18, I thought the market was getting hot, and I was like, oh, there's going to be a crash coming. Oh, let me just wait and take my time, and once the crash happens, I can pick up great deals, right? Well, 2 years later, this is where we're at, right? Over 2 years later, this is where we're at, and who knows what's going to happen next, right? And I kind of waited for multifamily, should have bought way more. Waited for single family, should have bought way more, initially. So, talk about analysis paralysis. I definitely have witnessed it myself. Right now, I'm taking action and have done, but I should have taken way more action, right? Way more action. And that's not buying crappy deals. I'm just buying whatever I see, right? Make sure the deal makes sense and everything like that, right? And you understand what you're investing in. But for me, hands down, that's been the biggest mistake I made. If I'd have bought, I could have bought stuff here in in Vegas in 17, right? In 17 in the apartment space, right? Imagine how much money I would have made if I just bought an average deal back then. Right? We didn't know where the cycle was going, but what I'm saying is we didn't know where the cycle was going, so it didn't make sense for me to wait either, right? Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't that I was banking on that appreciation. I could have bought something for cash flow and forced the appreciation through increasing rents and lowering expenses. But by waiting, what did I gain, right? Like losing money in the bank or whatever, right? You know?
Regardless if it's a up market or down market, you're still buying, right? And that's where you make your money. And so if you can buy from a motivated seller, somebody who's in distress, and you can buy at a discount, you're going to be fine either way. Obviously, it helps when the market's in your favor. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's important, just to continue to put yourself out there, take the action, and just get started. I mean, you just got to get started. But
for sure.
Anyway, man, we're rolling up on an hour.
You got any questions you want? If anyone has any questions, if they
I haven't seen any questions pop in, so I guess everyone had all of them answered through our podcast.
They pulled this switched off. They're like, this guy won't shut up.
Later they'll pop in probably after. But anyway, guys, if any of you have questions right now who are watching, drop it in the comments. We'll be here for a couple minutes, and while you're thinking of a question, I'm gonna ask you here something to think about, Barry. Is one final thought or piece of advice that you'd like to leave listeners with, and then I'll ask you where can people learn more about you.
Well, yeah. So two things. Like, definitely that. Like, don't wait too long. Like, don't do what I did. Like, I didn't think I was smart, I guess, but I was like paying attention and listening to economists and like. And I'm not that smart. I kind of understand the economy, kind of just about, but it's like, listening to all this stuff. And like, once you start listening to all this negativity as well, you can you then look out for negativity, right? And it wasn't negativity, but looking for, if I'm looking at YouTube and I'm thinking the market is going to go down, well, when a clip comes up, real estate crash, well, that's what I'm going to click on, right? And then that reinforces what I'm thinking, and it like leads me down to that. So don't wait too long, right? Just, make sure the deal makes sense, and make sure that if there is some downturn, take that in consideration, right? Will you still be okay? What is your exit strategy? If you're wholesaling and you have to hold on to this property, would it make a rental? Would it make a flip, right? If you're buying multifamily, right, will it still cash flow if there is a 10% downturn in vacancy? If there's a 10%, 15% downturn in rents, what does that look like? And if it's still okay and you have that long-term debt, right, you can hold on to the property for 5 years, well, it makes sense to buy the property, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But if your property is cash flowing now and you're still okay with these considerations, it makes sense to buy, right? So that's definitely one thing, but I touched on that. And I think the other thing is, like, you hear it all the time, so I feel like bad saying this, because when I listen to podcasts, like when people say, build your network, connect with people, right? And it's like, I wish I could give a better answer, but it's so true, right? Through my podcast, right, I just met so many people. And you don't have to start a podcast to do that, but you can definitely network better, right? And the cool thing about this pandemic, to some extent, right? There's no cool thing about this pandemic, but what's the cool thing, result of it, is the Zoom thing, right? Virtual meetups, right? Even though we're both in Vegas now, like it's sitting in our houses doing this, right? And you can be on the other side of the country, and there's all kinds of meetup events. There's all types of connections that you can make, right? And to me, just doing my podcast, like, I've grown my network 100 times, not like 10, 100 times. And that in itself, I know is going to lead to so much success, right? Because I have people that I'm going to do deals with, people that are going to bring me deals, people that are going to help me, people that I'm going to help them. Like, it's just unbelievable. So if you, like, literally, if you can get out there and speak to more people, and it doesn't need to be in person, right? If you can, great. That's always a great way to meet people. But like, put yourself out there on Facebook groups. Put yourself out there in virtual meetups. They're pretty much every day now, right? I know in multifamily, there's almost one every Monday to Friday every day that you can attend, right? And just go there and build your education, right? And like, it sounds so cliche to say build your network. So I'm sorry to anyone that I sound like a million other podcast people that at the end, but like, I've witnessed it, right? I'm not just saying it. I've just literally witnessed it. And it's just like, I went from the start of the year, like trying to find deals and like trying to figure stuff out and continuously learn and stuff, obviously, to like being involved with the group that we made an offer on 99 units 2 weeks ago, $5.8 million offer, to finding partners that are doing a flip, that I just bring the money that they're doing, to finding people that want to joint venture with me on 20 to 50 units in Cincinnati, to finding people that are interested in doing deals in different markets, and finding people that now help give me advice if I have a question. Like, it's just been nuts. It's just been nuts. And, you know, all I've done is talk to people, right? And, you know, just be nice, have a great conversation with someone. And it's just so, yeah, hopefully that helps. I'm sorry if
no, man, this is great. Honestly, a lot of people say the same thing. Your network is your net worth, but it's so true. And it's a real life example for you. And I mean, for me, even, I just started my podcast, but man, this has been amazing. And where can people learn more about you, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I'm sorry, like, it's been an hour and 5 minutes now, right? It's crazy. It's gone by so quick. It's been fun, man. I love this stuff. It's like, you know, that's what I love about my podcast. I just get to talk to people for an hour about real estate. It's like so cool. And
I can't wait to do this on yours next week.
I have to shut up a lot more on my own podcast. So when I'm like bleh, when I get on other people's podcasts, it's because I love it, right? But so I have my own podcast. It's called the WWRE podcast, and I have a YouTube channel called Wrestling with Real Estate. But the best place you can find out more about everything that I have going on is wrestlingwithrealestate.com. So that's the website. They have the links to the podcast. They have the links to the YouTube. And also, like, as people can tell, I love talking about real estate. And if anyone's interested, so just hop on a call to talk about real estate. Like, even if you're a beginner, even if you're a billionaire, whatever it is, I would just love to, like, get on a call and talk to you guys about real estate. Like, it gives me an excuse to talk about it. So there's a link in wrestlingwithrealestate.com, the website. Just sign up there and we can hop on a call and see if I can help you, or we can help each other or something. Who knows?
Love it, man. All right, guys. Well, that is all for now. I can't wait to talk to you, Barry, when you have like 200 units. Like, I don't know, what is that, like 1 or 2 years from now, or is it gonna get that big?
No, it could be. Yeah, it could be. For sure. The goal is to get to 100 units next year. Hopefully, to get to 100 units next year. Now, what does that look like? How do I get there? Might have to define that. That might be my thing to do in the next few years. Yeah, but to get to 100 units next year, for sure.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, have a wonderful and Merry Christmas.